Hi, my name is Olajide Olagunju, and I'm the author of the book, How to Resolve Conflict, um, which is the book in front of you. You would probably be aware that for a few days now, we've been discussing in a lecture series titled How to Resolve the Conflict, which is based on this book. We'll be discussing best practice in conflict resolution. Uh, and I think that today we should use the events of January 6, 2021, the protest in the Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., as a case study to see what we would have done uh, differently than what took place. So what I'd like us to do is look at um, a, a view on the events, what took place, what actually happened. So I'd like to read from the Wikipedia the way it was presented, and then I'll read the view of a notable academic, the president of Brandeis University, and then we'll have a discussion. So let's do that. So let's begin with reading the reports as captured on in Wikipedia. I read, on January 6, 2021, a mob of rioters supporting United States President Donald Trump stormed the US Capitol, breaching security and occupying parts of the building for several hours. The riots were incited by comments made by Trump at an earlier rally. The storming disrupted a joint session of Congress to count the vote of the Electoral College and certify Joe Biden's victory in the 2020 presidential election, and led to evacuations and lockdowns of the building. Following several weeks of fiercely disputed claims by Trump about electoral fraud, thousands of his supporters gathered in Washington, D.C. on January 5 and 6 to protest the elections results and demand that Vice President Mike Pence and Congress reject Biden's victory. On the morning of January 6, protesters assembled at the Save America rally on the Ellipse, where President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and several members of Congress addressed the crowd. Trump encouraged his supporters to fight like hell to take back, quote, to take back our country and to march towards the Capitol. Trump supporters subsequently stormed the Capitol building during the Electoral College vote count as the rioters entered the Capitol by breaking through windows and doors. Capitol security evacuated the Senate and House of Representatives chambers. Several buildings in the Capitol complex were evacuated, and all of them were subsequently locked down. Rioters broke past security to occupy the evacuated Senate chamber, while guards drew handguns to prevent entry to the evacuated House floor. 5 people have been confirmed dead. Forgive me, 5 people have been confirmed dead from the event, and others were seriously injured. One woman attempting to enter the House chamber was shot by law enforcement and later died. Capitol Police Officer Brian D. Sicknick collapsed after being attacked with a fire extinguisher by rioters and later died. 3 protesters suffered fatal medical emergencies during the event. So that is the story of what happened as presented in Wikipedia. I guess we could say that gives us an idea of what happened. I'd like us to now read the response of Brandeis' president. Quote, yesterday we witnessed an assault not only on the Capitol, but also on our nation's democratic institutions, established processes, and the rule of law. These cornerstones of government sustain our democracy. Yet, we are reminded that they are fragile. Even in this, the world's oldest constitutional democracy. Regardless of our backgrounds, political affiliations, or personal ideologies, it is incumbent upon all of us to condemn these acts of violence, rooted in lies that have gone unchallenged by too many and for too long. It is our role to speak out in support of our nation's democratic institutions and values, the same values that inspired Brandeis' founders to establish a university committed to justice and the pursuit of truth. In this time of uncertainty, each of us must play a role in helping to repair our frayed democracy by engaging one another in debate through our research, our teaching and learning, and through an unwavering commitment to facts, the rule of law, and respect for difference of opinion. That is Ron Leibovitz, president of Brandeis University. I think these two perspectives, the story and the view of Professor Leibovitz, provides us enough to chew on for now in terms of grasping with what happened on, at Capitol, the legislature of the US on January 6, 2021. First, what is undoubted, what is clear, from the two views is that the event challenged in a remarkable way the democracy of the USA. And that is critical because, as President Leibovitz said, not Leibovitz, I believe it's the earlier story I read. One of them said that the US democracy is the, to paraphrase what they said, the shining light, the beacon, the leader in democracies globally. And the reason given by the author, the writer, or the speaker is that it's the oldest. Well, that may be debatable, but what is clear is that definitely the US democracy has been a shining light. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And this event shook the US democracy to almost to its roots. It's a monumental event. Not the protest, I mean, every democracy, I mean, it's a democracy because it allows protest. But what the protest turned to, which is an attack on the on a symbol, on a huge, big strategic symbol of democracy, not just in America, but in the world, the Capitol, where the legislators make laws for America, laws that impact the whole world. And so I think that as mediators, it's something that should give us deep thoughts. Now, what's my general view on what happened? I think it's not just a challenge to democracy. I think it shows that it's just a failure of peacemaking and effective conflict resolution. Failure not because peacemaking, mediation, effective conflict resolution, it doesn't work, but because it was not applied. And I asked myself, where are all the mediators of America, if not mediators of the world? Because what happened could have been imagined. I mean, it was the climax of a build-up. Maybe we would not have envisaged that it would go that far. It would become so violent. But to say one would not have expected something in that line, given the rhetorics leading to the event, that would not be correct. So I think that what happened could have been nipped in the bud by those of us who are mediators. And I think that we failed in not intervening. That's my perspective. What ought to have happened when when events were going that way in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks after the elections? What ought to have happened was for a respected mediator, which it does not have to be a professional mediator like us. It could be some people of the status of past presidents, George Bush Jr., President Clinton, working together to approach the two people involved in this electoral conflict, i.e. the incumbent president and President-elect Joe Biden. That's President Trump and incoming President Biden. I think that the least that could have happened, which I didn't see happen, is for mediators, co-mediators of the status of these people I just mentioned, Presidents Clinton and Bush, to intervene and begin discussion at least 2, 3, 4 weeks ago with the two contestants and contenders. So the lesson is that when we see something, a conflict like this brewing, we ought to intervene. Those who have the wit and the capacity and ability to intervene ought to have intervened, irrespective of their personal political affiliations. And that's why I said maybe President George Bush Jr. and President Bill Clinton ought to have come together as co-mediators and mediate. I have no doubt, I seriously believe that Joe Biden would have listened to them. Trump would have listened to them. This is what happened is really very shameful. And I think that we need to be very sensitive going forward so that this kind of thing does not happen again. Even if the people who could intervene, even if they didn't have the skills, which I doubt, the two of them having been presidents, having gone through elections severally, even if they did not have the skills, one thing that is not lacking in the USA, is a college of mediators. I mean, in terms of effective conflict resolution, the skills are abundant in the US. And so those professional mediators could have assisted these community leaders, national leaders, in their mediation efforts. And I think if that had been done, things would not have gotten, would not have been as bad as it was. So essentially what I'm saying, at the risk of repeating myself, is that let us nip violence in the bud. Violence, what happened was the last thing. But as I said, it was not unimaginable. I mean, 4 weeks ago, it could have been, one could begin to see that from the, like I said, the rhetorics, the leadership, political leadership were already speaking towards it. And so it's like, it's not something that is really took us unawares. It did not. So let's be sensitive. Let everybody, we all have a duty to the nation and to the world to ensure peace and to avoid violence. So on the other hand, I think that there's also a failure of law. So I've discussed the one that concerns mediators. Fortunately, I'm on both sides. I'm a lawyer and I'm a mediator. Now, law, where did the law fail? I think, building up on what I just said, there ought to have been written into the electoral laws some form of political mediation. That if this happens, then if we see violence brewing, if we see a conflict that might lead to violence, as a matter of fact, anywhere you're having this kind of protest that happened on the 5th and the 6th, I mean, especially the rhetoric around them, well, that should signal, that's an early warning. That should constitute early warning that violence may happen. And so we ought to, the USA ought to write into its electoral laws a provision for political mediation. And they can go on to appoint the individuals or institutions that would manage the conflict resolution. It could be a bipartisan mediation where you have the past president of one party, let's say the Republican, and another past president from, say, the Democratic Party. And then, so that, like, 3 weeks ago, they would have been working on this. Now, it could also be institutions in the sense like, you could say, well, the United States Institute of Peace, which is very strong on conflict resolution skills, could come in, you know, or be the institution that sets up and coordinates the mediation. There are other bodies in America that are focused on conflict resolution. I don't think our problem was lack of skill. Our problem was the fact that nobody seems to have moved in the right direction. It's not enough to just condemn, to say this is wrong, this is right. I mean, a mediator does not condemn, does not judge. There's a conflict, as I've taught severally, is part of life. It's something we should expect every day. The problem is not the conflict. This problem is a conflict that is not resolved. Becomes the kind of violence that we experienced on January 6, 2021 at Capitol. And so I think I have touched on what generally should be the approach going forward. Sensitivity on the part of mediators, both professional and non-professional, and the need for lawmaking to amend, to ensure that we provide for this kind of situation in the future. Oh, there are other issues around the event, but I think I want to restrict myself to my areas of specialization, which is conflict resolution and law. But I'd like to read. Um, I'd like to look at the story I read again. Now, not many people have died. Even if it was just one person, that's a lot. But at least 5 people have died. That's an unnecessary waste of life. It's completely indefensible. And like I said, this could have been avoided if we were lax to our responsibilities as mediators, and if the law makers themselves are provided for effective conflict resolution or more effective conflict resolution of political conflicts. And legal provision should not just be at the federal level, it should also be at the state level. The state legislatures should also amend the electoral laws to ensure that they provide for political conflict. Because now we know it's there. I mean, it's always been there, but now we know it could become a violent conflict. So I said that lives have been lost. Properties have been damaged. Loss of resources. And then the shame to the polity, the American polity. Our democracy can be so desecrated, can be so disrespected. You know, this you can quickly repair buildings. You know, you cannot repair a lost life. You can't. You can't. You can't. You can't. And that is very painful. For me, it's very painful because I know. I mean, like I've said, several of the lectures in the How to Resolve Conflict series has been touching on that: loss of resources, loss of waste of time, and other things like that. Now, the how do you repair the psyche of the average American who is shocked, if not traumatized, at what happened at the Capitol on the 6th of January 2021? You know, how do you manage the damage, the global damage? Because if Americans can be so challenged, then people globally begin to wonder, what is our faith? But I don't have the answers. At least I don't have all the answers. But I just want us to have these questions and suggestions on our mind so that what happened never happens again. It was likely unnecessary. Somebody could have been called to order. I think that we must take responsibility and we must say never again. Thank you for listening. For more of my views on effective conflict resolution, you could, if you can, read the book I introduced you at the beginning of this discussion, How to Resolve a Conflict. Thank you very much.